The night my life burned down, my phone was on silent. I didn't hear the first call. Or the second. When I finally checked it, I had 14 missed calls from my neighbor. And one message that froze my chest. Your apartment is on fire. At first, I thought it was some kind of sick joke. Maybe a wrong address, maybe a small kitchen accident. Maybe smoke, not fire. But then I saw the video he sent. Flames were coming out of my living room window. Real flames. Bright orange, angry, violent. The kind that doesn't ask permission. My hand started shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I remember whispering, "No, no, no." I was at work, 40 minutes away, and in those 40 minutes, my entire world was being erased. Everything I owned, every memory, every document, every photo, every gift, every small piece of my independence. Turning into smoke. I don't remember the drive back. I must have broken every speed rule. My mind kept replaying one thought. This can't be happening to me. I just got stable. I just got on my feet. When I reached the building, the street was blocked. Fire trucks. Police tape. Neighbors outside in pajamas, funds out, faces lit by flashing red lights. And then I saw my window. Black, broken. Dead. A firefighter stopped me but I could run in. "You can't go inside. That's my home," I shouted. He looked at me, not unkindly, and said the sentence I'll never forget. "It was your home." That word was a knife, not his. Was. And in that moment, I felt something deeper than fear. I felt alone. I didn't know yet just how alone I really was. By morning, the fire was out. But the damage wasn't. My apartment looked like a skeleton. Burned walls, melted shelves, water everywhere, the smell heavy, bitter, final. I stood there with a mask on, stepping over what used to be my couch. My laptop gone, my clothes gone, my paperwork gone, my savings box gone. A whole life reduced to a wet, black mess. The building manager kept talking, but his voice sounded far away. "We'll need to investigate the source. Insurance reports, structural damage, temporary closure." I nodded at everything like a robot. Then he asked, "Do you have somewhere to stay?" Such a simple question, such a dangerous one. I swallowed and said, "Yeah, my parents." I said it with confidence, with trust, with the kind of blind faith only children have, even grown ones. Because no matter how distant things had been lately, they were still my parents. Right? Family is the last safety net. Or at least that's what I believed that morning. I stepped outside and called my mother. She answered on the third ring. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Mom, there was a fire. My apartment is gone." Silence. Then she said, flat and calm, "Oh, that's unfortunate." Unfortunate, like I'd missed a bus. "I need a place to stay," I said quietly. "Just for a little while." Another pause. Then she said something that didn't feel real. "Well, your father and I don't want disruption right now." I actually thought the call cut. "I'm sorry." "What?" "We just finished renovating the guest room. And your cousin is visiting next month. It's not a good time." My home had burned down. And it was inconvenient. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain couldn't process the cruelty. "Mom, I have nowhere else." She sighed. Annoyed now. "You're an adult. You chose to live on your own. These are adult problems." Adult problems. "No, I talked to Dad," I asked. "He agrees." Of course he did. He always agreed. The call ended. No comfort, no questions. No "Are you home?" Just closed doors. I stood on the sidewalk, surrounded by strangers who showed more concern than my own blood. And for the first time since the fire, I felt something hotter than grief. I felt anger. People think betrayal starts with one moment. It doesn't. It starts with patterns you keep excusing. Standing there outside my burned apartment, I started remembering things I had buried for years. My parents didn't become cold overnight. They were always transactional. Support came with conditions. Help came with lectures. Love came with invoices. When I got my first job, my father said, "Good. Now you can stop being a burden." When I moved out, my mother said, "Don't come back asking for help." I thought they were just strict. Old school. Tough love. That's what I told everyone. That's what I told myself. I paid for my own college books, my own rent, my own medical bills. When I struggled, they said, "That's life." But when relatives visited, They bragged about how independent I was, like they built that independence instead of forcing it. Still, I never cut them off. Because somewhere inside, the child version of me still hoped. One day they'll show up for me. Fire has a way of burning illusions too. My phone buzzed again. My neighbor, "Hey," he said gently. "Investigators are coming later. They think the fire didn't start inside your unit." That caught my attention. "What do you mean?" "They're checking wiring between walls. Something about the shared electrical line." "Shared, with the unit next to mine, my parents' investment unit." "Yes. The apartment beside mine, the one they rented out, was owned by them." Suddenly, the story shifted. And I didn't know it yet. But the truth was already walking toward the building with a badge and a clipboard. And when it arrived, everything would change. The investigator didn't look like I expected. No dramatic entrance, no flashing badge, no loud authority. Just a calm man in a gray jacket, carrying a tablet and a thermal camera, like someone who solved problems by listening more than talking. He introduced himself and shook my hand like this was a normal day. "I'm here to find out where the fire really started," he said. Really started. That word stuck with me. Because everyone else had been saying things like accident, incident, unfortunate event. But he said really, which meant truth mattered. He walked through the ruins slowly, took photos, measured distances, scanned the walls, checked outlet boxes, burn patterns, melt directions. He didn't rush. Fire, I realized, leaves a signature, and he knew how to read it. After about 20 minutes, he asked, "You lived alone?" "Yes." "Any recent electrical issues? Flickering lights? Burning smell? Trip breakers?" "No," I said. "Nothing." He nodded, not surprised. Then he asked, "Who owns the unit next door?" I hesitated for half a second. "My parents." He looked up for the first time and studied my face, not in judgment, just awareness. "Do you know if they've done recent electrical work there?" "I don't know." He made a note. "Because the heat pattern suggests the fire may have started on that side of the shared wall." My stomach tightened. Wall. Shared wiring. Shared responsibility. He crouched near what used to be my TV area and pointed at the burned spread. "See this V pattern? Fire climbed from low inside the wall, not from inside your room." "So not my fault?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer directly. "Investigators don't deal in feelings, only facts." "We'll confirm with internal inspection," he said. "But I can tell you this, fires that start inside walls are rarely random." Rarely random. That sentence echoed all day. Before leaving, he said one more thing. "Don't sign any liability papers yet. Wait for the report." I hadn't even thought about liability. But suddenly I was. And for the first time since the fire, I felt something new. Not grief, not anger. Focus. The tenant from my parents' unit showed up that afternoon. Nervous guy. Mid-30s. Smelled like stress and cheap cologne. He kept apologizing. Even though no one had accused him yet. "I swear I didn't do anything," he said. "I told them to fix it." "Who asked?" "Your parents, the owners." My pulse picked up. "Fix what?" "The wiring. The breaker kept heating up. I sent pictures." "Pictures? When?" 3 months ago, then again last month." "Did they respond?" "Your dad said it was normal load behavior. Told me not to worry." Normal load behavior. I almost laughed. My father wasn't an electrician. He once installed a ceiling fan backward. "Did anyone come to repair it?" I asked. He shook his head. "They said they'd do it after the lease renewal." After. Not before. Savings over safety. He pulled out his phone and showed me the message thread. There it was. Photos of a scorched breaker panel. Messages saying, "This smells like burning plastic. Should I shut power? Please send electrician." And my father's reply, "Don't exaggerate, it's fine." I took screenshots, hands steady now. Something inside me had shifted from victim to witness. Later that evening, my mother finally called. Not to check on me, to check on the unit. "Do you know how bad the damage is to the building structure?" she asked. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "Where are you sleeping?" Structure. Money. Asset. I answered calmly, "Investigation is ongoing." She exhaled sharply. This could become expensive. There it was. The real fear, not my loss, their cost. I almost told her what the tenant showed me. But I didn't. Because something told me. Let the truth arrive officially. People like my parents only believe authority, not family. So I waited. 3 days later, the investigator called. His tone was still calm, but heavier. We've completed the origin analysis. I stepped outside the motel I was staying in, courtesy of emergency housing support. Not family, not friends. A city program. Where did it start? I asked. Inside the electrical cavity between units, he said. Primary ignition point next door panel. My chest tightened. He continued. The breaker assembly showed long-term heat damage and improper load balancing. Translation. Neglect. Documented neglect. Cause classification. I asked. He answered clearly. Preventable electrical failure. Preventable. That word hit like thunder. Not accident, not random, preventable. Will that be in the written report? I asked. Yes. Will ownership responsibility be included? Yes. I thanked him, and after the call ended, I sat down on the curb and stared at nothing for a full minute. My apartment burned because someone ignored warnings. Because repairs were delayed. Because saving money mattered more than safety. And the owners were my parents. I didn't cry this time. I felt something colder. Clarity. That evening my father called, voice tight. We heard investigators are blaming wiring. I said nothing. He continued. These reports are often wrong. Often wrong. Send it to me when you get it, he said. Not please, not are you okay. Just send it. I realized something in that moment. They weren't worried about me. They were worried about exposure. And exposure was coming. Because the report wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The insurance adjuster called 2 days after the report was filed. Her voice was polite. Professional, the kind that sounds warm but never emotional. I've reviewed the fire investigator's findings, she said. This changes the claim direction. Changes how? I asked. Well, originally this was processed as a unit, level loss. But now that origin is confirmed from the adjacent electrical panel, liability shifts to the neighboring owner. Owner, not tenant, not accident, owner. My parents own that unit, I said quietly. There was a brief pause. The kind where professionals switch from casual mode to careful mode. Understood, she replied. In that case, recovery action will likely be pursued. Recovery action? That's the insurance way of saying someone is going to get billed. For how much? I asked. She gave me a number. It was higher than I expected. Structural repairs, smoke damage, water damage, temporary housing, property loss, 6 figures. I leaned back against the motel wall and closed my eyes. This won't involve me, right? I asked. No, she said. You are classified as affected resident. Not responsible party. Not responsible. I should have felt relief. But instead, I felt something complicated. Because the people responsible raised me. She continued. We'll need your documentation of lost property. I lost almost everything, I said. Then list everything, she replied gently. People always forget half their life until they write it down. She was right. That night, I made the list. Laptop, camera, hard drives, clothes, shoes, documents, books with notes in the margins, my graduation folder, the watch I bought with my first paycheck, item after item, memory after memory, value after value. Loss becomes more painful when you name it. Halfway through, my phone rang. Dad. I let it ring once, then answered. We spoke to a contractor, he said without greeting. Damage estimates are exaggerated. Of course they are, I thought. They're based on report findings, I said calmly. These investigators overstate things, he snapped. It helps insurance justify higher premiums. I almost smiled. He was already building a defense. You should support us, he added. Support. Interesting word, from someone who offered me none. My home burned, I said quietly. Support goes both ways. Silence. Then click, he hung up. That was the moment I understood something clearly. They weren't in denial. They were in strategy. Truth leaves footprints. And careless people forget to sweep. The tenant next door messaged me again. I found more, he wrote. More what? Emails? He forwarded them. 3 service requests, 2 follow-ups, 1 final warning message. All ignored. But that wasn't the real surprise. Attached to one email was a contractor quote. Dated 4 months before the fire. Subject line. Urgent panel replacement recommended. Recommended, not optional. I opened the quote. The electrician had written, Panel overheating. Fire risk if not replaced soon. Fire risk. In writing. With signature. With license number. With photos. My father had replied. Too expensive right now. We'll revisit later. Later came. In flames. I stared at the screen for a long time, not shocked. Not even angry. Just done. Some betrayal scream. Others confirm what you always suspected. I asked the tenant, "Why are you sending me this?" His answer was simple. Because they're already telling people I caused it. There it was. Blame transfer. Classic move. "Will you testify if needed?" I asked. Yes. No hesitation. Strangers were standing up for me. Blood was not. That night my mother sent her first message about me since the fire. Not a call. A message. "We heard you're sharing documents." I replied, "Facts aren't secrets." She answered, "Families handle things privately." I stared at that sentence. Families. Things. Privately. I typed, then erased 3 different angry replies. Finally I wrote So do responsible owners. No response after that. But pressure had begun. You could feel it in the silence. My parents cared about one thing more than money. Image. Respect in the community. Clean reputation. Reliable investors. Careful property owners. Disciplined family. All built like glass. And glass doesn't like heat. The building association scheduled a review meeting, standard after major incidents. Owners attended, including them. I wasn't required to go. But I did, not to attack, to observe. My father wore his formal voice, the one he uses when pretending to be reasonable. This was an unpredictable failure. He told the room, unpredictable. The investigator, also present, calmly said, "We documented prior heat damage and ignored repair advisories." No emotion, just fact. My father smiled tightly. "Advisories are not mandates," the investigator replied. Fire doesn't care about wording. The room went quiet. My mother avoided looking at me. Not once did she ask how I was. Not once. But she did whisper to another owner, "This is being exaggerated." I almost laughed. Reality always sounds exaggerated to people caught in it. Then the association manager said something important. Maintenance negligence affecting adjacent units may trigger civil exposure. Civil exposure. Public record. Paper trail. Legal light. You could see it, the first crack in their confidence. After the meeting, one of the board members approached me privately. "I'm sorry," she said. "You were treated unfairly." 3 words. More compassion than my parents gave in 3 weeks. As I walked away, I realized something powerful. They thought the fire destroyed my position. But it did the opposite. It removed their cover. Truth had oxygen now. And oxygen makes truth spread. Funny thing about accountability. It makes cold people warm very fast. A week after the association meeting, my mother called again. But this time, her voice had changed, soft, careful. Almost sweet. "We've been thinking about you," she said. That sentence would have meant something 2 weeks earlier. Now it sounded rehearsed. "I'm okay," I replied. "You shouldn't be staying in a motel," she continued. "It's not good for your health." Health. Interesting concern arriving late. "I managed," I said. "We can send some money." She offered temporary help. There it was. Not shelter, not apology, a transaction. "How much?" I asked. She named a number, small compared to the losses involved. Smaller than 1 month of their rental income. "I'll pass," I said. She paused, surprised. "Why would you refuse help?" Because it wasn't help. It was positioning. Because money given now becomes a story later. "We supported you during your crisis?" "No," I said calmly. "I prefer documented channels." Documented. Insured and legal. Official. Her tone cooled by 2 degrees. "You're making this bigger than it needs to be." I almost smiled. People say that when truth becomes expensive, fire already made it big. I answered. She ended the call quickly. Kindness attempt failed. But that wasn't the real move. The real move came the next morning. A message from my father. "Let's settle this within family." Settle. Not discuss. Settle, like a case. Because that's what it had become. 3 days later, a registered envelope arrived at the motel front desk. Law firm header. Heavy paper. Sharp language. I opened it slowly. It was from my parents' attorney. Not emotional. Not personal. The letter stagic. They disputed the investigator's conclusions. They suggested alternate ignition sources. They warned against defamatory statements. They advised me to refrain from public attribution. I read it twice, then laughed once, out loud, not because it was funny, but because it confirmed everything. Innocent people don't send threat letters to their burned-out child. They send support. Guilty people send lawyers. At the bottom was the line that mattered most. We are open to private resolution. Private again. Always private, because private leaves no record. I called the insurance adjuster and forwarded the letter. Her response was immediately, "Do not engage direct work. Process. The slow, boring machine of truth." I liked that word. Later that afternoon, the investigator called me again, not officially, just informational. "Pressure may increase," he said. "That's normal in preventable loss cases." "Does pressure change reports?" I asked. "No," he said simply. "Evidence doesn't get intimidated." I wrote that sentence down. Evidence doesn't get intimidated. People do. Paper doesn't. Revenge stories aren't powered by anger alone. They're powered by understanding. And understanding arrived through an unexpected source. A property broker I knew casually messaged me. "Hey, did you know your parents were refinancing that unit?" I didn't. "Loan approval pending before the fire," he added. Pending. I asked for details. He sent public filing references. They had applied for a higher valuation refinance, based on recent electrical upgrades. Upgrades. I checked the declaration copy. There it was. Claimed improvements. Electrical panel upgrade listed. Dated after the electrician warning. But before the fire, which meant one of two things. Either they upgraded and lied to the tenant, or they didn't upgrade and lied to the bank. Both were bad. One was explosive. I sat very still for a long time. This wasn't just neglect anymore. This was motive. Delay repair, claim upgrade, increase valuation, avoid cost. Until fire exposed the truth. Now their panic made perfect sense. This wasn't just about blame, it was about records, loans, statements, declarations. I forwarded the refinance document to the insurance adjuster. Her reply came fast. "Thank you. This is very relevant." Relevant. Professional language for devastating. That night, I didn't feel rage. I felt control. Because revenge isn't loud, real revenge is patient. Real revenge is documented. Real revenge is letting truth walk into the room and turn on the lights. And the lights were just starting to come on. 2 weeks after the lawyer's letter, my father finally asked to meet. Not at their house. Not anywhere personal, hotel lobby. Neutral ground. The favorite place of people who don't want scenes. He was already seated when I arrived, papers neatly stacked. Pen aligned, posture controlled. He looked like he was preparing for a business deal. Not a conversation with his child. He didn't hug me. Didn't ask how I was sleeping. Didn't ask what I lost. He said, "Let's be practical." Practical. I sat down slowly. "I already am." He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a family settlement agreement. No admission of fault, no apology, no responsibility language. Just money. A fixed payment. Far below the insurance loss in exchange for. No cooperation with insurance recovery. No document sharing, testimony, no public statements. No further claims. Silence purchased wholesale. He tapped the paper. "This protects everyone." Everyone. I read every line carefully, twice. It was cleverly written. Clean, controlled and cold. "You had a lawyer draft this," I said. "Yes. You had time for a lawyer," I added quietly. "But not space for me to sleep." His jaw tightened. "Don't make this emotional," he said. That sentence, right there, told me everything. Because only people who benefit from silence say that. I closed the folder. "No," I said. He blinked once. "I won't sign here making a mistake. Not this time." His voice hardened. "You think outsiders care about you more than family." I stood up. "They already proved they do." And I walked away. Leaving the unsigned agreement on the table like a mirror he refused to look into. That was the moment the power shifted. He came to control the outcome. He left without it. Once documents enter official systems, they stop being opinions. They become facts. Insurance filed subrogation notice. The building association logged negligence reference. The refinance file triggered review flags due to conflicting upgrade claims. No drama. No shouting. Just paperwork moving through channels. Quiet consequences are the loudest kind. I started getting calls. not from professionals. Adjusters, review officers, compliance departments, each asking for the same thing. Do you have copies of the repair warnings? Wes. Do you have the contractor quote? Les. Do you have tenant messages? Yes. Truth, it turns out likes backups. My parents went into reputation defense mode. They started calling relatives. I know because relatives started calling me. Not to ask what happened. To ask why I was pushing things. One aunt said, "These matters shouldn't leave the family." I answered calmly. The fire already left the family. It entered the building. Silence after that. Narratives were forming, but facts were stronger. Then came the turning point. The lender paused their refinance approval pending inspection verification. Money pipeline frozen. Pressure rising, image cracking. My mother finally called again, voice strained now. "What do you want?" she asked. It was the first honest question she'd asked since the fire. I answered honestly. The truth to stay true. She didn't like that answer. Because truth doesn't negotiate. The final confrontation didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened in a conference room. Insurance recovery mediation. Neutral mediator. All parties present. My parents, their lawyer, insurance counsel, association rep, and me, not as a victim, as a witness. Documents were displayed one by one, heat damage photos. Warning emails, contractor quote, refinance declaration, timeline alignment. No raised voices, just quiet destruction of denial. The mediator asked my father directly. "Were you informed of overheating risk?" His lawyer answered for him, "Never a good sign." We dispute interpretation. The mediator nodded and said, "Interpretation doesn't change timestamps." That line landed heavy. My mother finally looked at me, really looked, for the first time since the fire. Not with anger. Not with authority. With something unfamiliar, uncertainty. The version of me sitting there wasn't the child who asked for approval. It was the adult who brought receipts. After 2 hours, position softened. Not morally. Financially. Contribution offers began. Responsibility language shifted from denial to shared fault to settlement percentage. Justice rarely looks like confession. It looks like signatures. When the session ended, my father said quietly as we stood, "You've changed." I met his eyes and answered, "No." I stopped pretending. And that more than any document ended the old relationship. Not with shouting. With clarity. People think rebuilding starts with money. It doesn't. It starts with identity. When you lose everything physical, one question shows up like an unwelcome guest. Who am I without my things? The insurance advance payment came through first, enough to replace essentials. A laptop. Basic furniture for a small temporary rental. I remember standing in an empty studio apartment with one chair and one box and feeling strangely peaceful. No history on the walls. No inherited guilt in the corners. No emotional noise. Just space. Loss had cleared more than property. It cleared illusions, friends, real ones, stepped in quietly. One brought kitchen supplies. One helped me rebuild my document archive. One spent 3 hours helping me list replacements, no speeches, just presence. That's when I learned something powerful. Support isn't loud. It shows up in lifts. Work gave me flexible hours. My manager said, "Take what time you need, we trust you." Trust. Such a simple gift. Such a rare one in my family. I stopped waiting for my parents to ask how I was. Because emotionally, I no longer lived there. Healing began the day expectation ended. The message came late at night. From my mother. 3 lines. "We didn't expect it to go this far. We were under financial pressure. We're sorry you were affected." Read that last line again. Not sorry for what they did. Sorry I was affected. Passive apology, the kind that removes the actor from the action. I waited a full day before replying, not to punish. To make sure I answered from calm, not hurt. I wrote I was affected because you ignored warnings. I was homeless because you delayed repairs. I was alone because you chose comfort over care. Then I added one final line. I forgive, but I don't return. That sentence matters. Because forgiveness and access are not the same thing. Some doors close peacefully, they still close. She never replied. But 2 days later, I heard from a relative. She cried after reading your message. For the first time in my life. That information didn't control me. Because accountability isn't cruelty. It's balance. The final settlement closed 3 months later. Numbers agreed, payments scheduled, liability documented, no headlines, no viral scandal. Just official responsibility. Their refinance application was permanently adjusted. Lower valuation, higher scrutiny. Future inspections mandatory. No one announced it publicly. But records remember. The tenant next door moved out. Into a safer building. He thanked me for standing firm. You didn't just help yourself, he said. You probably saved the next renter. That meant more than any check. My parents kept their properties. But they lost something they valued more than profit. Control of the story. Because now, the story had documents attached. And documents don't obey reputation. We haven't had a real conversation since. Only occasional formal messages. Holiday texts, no warmth, no pretending, and honestly, that's healthier. Not every relationship needs repair. Some need truth and distance. If you're listening to this thinking the fire was the tragedy, it wasn't. The fire was the flashlight. It showed me who shows up. It showed me who protects image over people. It showed me that family is not defined by blood, but by behavior. Here's what I learned. And maybe you need to hear it too. When someone tells you, don't make this bigger than it is, check who benefits from small truth. When someone says, handle it privately, check who fears records. When someone offers money instead of care, check the receipt attached. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes revenge is documentation, patience, refusal to lie, refusal to shrink, refusal to protect wrongdoing. Justice rarely needs shouting. It needs sunlight. My apartment burned. My illusion burned. My dependency burned. And what survived was me, clearer nond. If this story gave you something, clarity, strength, courage, then remember this. You are not wrong for expecting care. You are not weak for needing help. And you are not cruel for choosing truth over comfort. Sometimes the fire doesn't end your life. It introduces you to it.